earlier this week, Kemi Badenoch got hold of irrefutable evidence that Robert Jenrick was planning to quit, to resign. And what they got hold of was a resignation letter or statement. One of the two was left lying around by one of his team. They say his team was quite careless.
Kemi Badenoch has sacked Robert Jenrick from a shadow cabinet and suspended him from the party, saying he was plotting in secret to defect.
This morning, I removed the Conservative whip from Robert Jenrick after dismissing him from the shadow cabinet. I was very sorry to be presented with clear, irrefutable evidence, not just that he was preparing to defect, but he was planning to do so in the most damaging way possible to the Conservative Party and his shadow cabinet colleagues. It is my responsibility to protect our party, and faced with that information, I took the only decision that any responsible leader could.
Well, let's speak now to the Times' political editor, Stephen Swinford. Hello, Steve.
Hi.
Thanks for being with us. So, look, as always, your social media accounts, Steve, have been required reading this morning, as is your reporting for the Times. To the extent that we know, talk us through exactly what happened here.
I think we've missed the Tory psychodrama, haven't we? No one does psychodrama quite like the Tories. What appears to have happened is I was told that earlier this week, Kemi Badenoch got hold of irrefutable evidence that Robert Jenrick was planning to quit, to resign. And what they got hold of was a resignation letter or statement. One of the two was left lying around by one of his team. They say his team was quite careless, and as a result, there were issues around that. That was found, and subsequent to that, she kind of kept it. And at shadow cabinet on Tuesday, she sat there, she watched Robert Jenrick, and she was incensed. She was absolutely furious that he was plotting to go, yet sitting there as if he was doing nothing. And then she picked her moment and she choreographed this quite carefully. The chief whip, Rebecca Harris, rang up Robert Jenrick and told him, "You're sacked." That was shortly before 11:06 this morning. Then at 11:06 on the moment, so the phone is slammed down, Jenrick's furious, and Badenoch puts out her video. And all of this was timed for while Nigel Farage's press conference was taking place to have kind of maximum impact. So, yeah, like I say, no one does psychodrama quite like the Tories.
Yeah, I mean, and it does seem to have had maximum impact. So she appears to have blindsided not only Generick, but also Nigel Farage, who seemed to be somewhat sort of reeling from the news while on stage doing a press conference in Scotland. I mean, he really didn't seem to be quite on top of what was going on, Farage, did he?
No, he didn't, and it was all breaking around him. I mean, it is an open secret. We have written successive stories going back as far as early December. We wrote the first of them, that Robert Jenrick was looking at defection, that there was talk in reform circles about it. We had a tip at the beginning of December that they had a lunch together. I went to both parties on that. They both furiously denied it at the time, but we kept hearing noise about, meetings, meals. And it's very difficult as a journalist because we have a high standard of proof at the Times. And unless we've got someone who's on the table adjacent to them, we can't run it in the face of full denial. So the rumours kept coming. And then eventually you've got to this stage where their hand has been forced. And I think what is happening at Reform now is there was a press conference planned for 4:30 this afternoon. It was supposed to be about the delay of the local elections across swathes of Britain. That press conference is now being repurposed so that it's going to be probably all about Robert Jenrick. And I would imagine there's a very good chance we see Robert Jenrick there because they need to try to get back the narrative here. They need to fill the vacuum. And I imagine we may well see him later this afternoon.
Is this deeply, deeply damaging to Jenrick? Is there any chance that he now doesn't join Reform?
I think he will end up joining Reform. That feels inevitable because he is politically ambitious and now politically homeless, and they will provide him with a home. I think the question is, at the moment, this feels like in a situation Kemi Badenoch has done everything she can to take the initiative, to show control and to show strength. Over the long term, does it damage her? It is a senior member of her team, when you stand back, that is defecting to join Reform. And yes, she has sacked him, she's taken control and taken the initiative, and she is also on a kind of revived recently. But this is just, again, an example of psychodrama. And the Tories are keen to steer away from psychodrama headlines. So I'm not sure at the moment who ends up better off or worse off out of that. I think we're going to have to see how today plays out. But certainly for Robert Jenrick, it means that the Tories have been able to do a very aggressive hit job on him ahead of his defection.
Yeah, I mean, the shock of the new is always dramatic in politics. Once the dust has settled here, a month from now, 6 weeks from now, 2 months from now, even a year from now, with Robert Jenrick presumably as a senior member of Reform, is Reform strengthened by that?
I don't know, and that's a good question. Robert Jenrick was one of the Tories' most able performers and had been for some time able to capture headlines. But actually, we are now in a position where Kemi Badenoch has been on a better run. There are signs of a revival in the polls, and her own performances have improved significantly. So we've gone from a situation. Look, I'm old enough to remember Tory conference when every member of the shadow cabinet said Kemi Badenoch was a dead woman walking, that she would have to go, that she'd been utterly useless. She had a good conference and has got stronger since there. And now everyone is universally saying, well, actually, we think she's quite good and this is turning around and we can see the way forward. So politics changes very quickly at the moment. And I suspect she thinks that she'll be better off without him.
Well, look, in your podcast, The State of It, you made some New Year predictions. Here was our colleague Patrick's.
Well, you mentioned Robert Jenrick. I think my prediction for 2026 is that he'll be a Reform MP by the end of the year.
Well, look, he's not right yet, but how long do you give it, Steve?
I think I'd give it till 4:30 this afternoon at this rate. So, an outstanding prediction from Patrick Maguire, who I think has been up in Scotland reporting on Nigel Farage up there. So we'll probably hear more from him later. But Patrick was right. And the rumours, it looks, were very true. So let's just see how it plays out this afternoon.
Thank you very much indeed, Steve Swinford. Steve is, of course, The Times' political editor.